Good afternoon. Welcome, everyone, and thank you for joining our Faculty of Agriculture and Food Sciences Conversation Series. My name is Nazim Chichek, and I'm the Associate Dean Research for the faculty. So the title of today's seminar is The Many Tales of the Limit Order Book, Microstructure Research in Agricultural Markets. But before we start, I'd like to acknowledge that the University of Manitoba campuses are located on original lands of Anishinaabe, Inninewuk, Anishinaabe, Dakota, Iote, Dene, and on the national homeland of the Red River Métis. We respect the treaties that were made on these territories, we acknowledge the harms and mistakes of the past, and we dedicate ourselves to move forward in partnership with Indigenous communities in a spirit of reconciliation and collaboration. So if you're new to the Faculty Conversation Series, it is our virtual seminar series that highlights some of the innovative research that's happening in our faculty in a hopefully engaging discussion format. And if you missed our previous ones, there's an opportunity to view them right here on our faculty's YouTube channel. And as another option, you can also find links to the seminars at our knowledge translation portal, which we call the Manitoba Agriculture and Food Knowledge Exchange, or makemanitoba.ca. So makemanitoba.ca highlights our faculty's research as it relates to consumers and producers. There's links there for podcasts, different videos, infographics, and fact sheets. Okay, so today we have 4 speakers who will share with us a short summary of their research and then engage together in a conversation. You, as a viewer, can participate in this conversation by simply sending your questions and comments via the chat platform Slido. So right now, let me turn it over to Crystal Jorgensen, the faculty's communication specialist, to provide some guidance on how the audience can participate in the presentation today. Crystal?
Thank you, Nazim. And welcome to everyone who's joined us today. We really hope you help us out with some questions for our speakers. To do that, please open another browser window and visit www.slido.com. Enter the event code #AgMarkets, all one word, and then just feel free to start asking questions at any time. And when we get to the Q&A portion, we'll work our way through them in chronological order. The question field is a little bit limited in character count, so please keep your questions fairly succinct. And just to kick it off, I'd love to hear where people are tuning in from today. So with that, I'll turn it back to you, Nazim, and we can revisit these instructions later.
Okay, thanks, Crystal. As you said, we'll look at them again before the Q&A section of the seminar starts. But let's get on with our conversation. So a little bit of background. Trading volume of agricultural commodities on the Chicago Mercantile Exchange Group, or CME Group, which is North America's largest futures exchange, varies from an average of 350,000 contracts per day for corn to over 70,000 contracts per day for hogs. So research in commodity future markets took a significant turn with the migration of trading from the traditional pit or format to the electronic platform at the CME Group, which was marked officially in 2015. So in the electronic platform, market participants operate through digital interfaces and automated processes, which results in an extensive number of quotes and transactions that are being observed at very high frequencies. So all these data then are recorded by the exchange in a virtual book, which is the subject of our conversation today. So even though the book contains a substantial amount of information, it still remains poorly explored for agricultural commodities. This is because of the stronger historical focus on the traditional pit-like data, as well as the complexity of all that new data generated. So that in the book provides opportunities to study the effect of real-time information entering the market, things like timing of buy and sell orders, information conveyed by order types, market liquidity, different trading strategies, and many other such tales. So today's conversation will bring together a group of 4 experts who have been studying the book for quite some time. And without further ado, let me introduce them to you. So please help me welcome Dr. Julieta Frank, who's the professor in the Department of Agribusiness and Agriculture Economics here at the University of Manitoba. Her research is in the area of agricultural commodity markets. Specifically, she studies futures markets, trading mechanisms, market microstructure, transmission of information, liquidity provision, and high-frequency data. So Julieta received her MSc in agriculture economics from Cornell University and her MSc in statistics and PhD in agriculture economics from the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign. So she joined the U of M in 2009. So over to you, Julieta.
Thank you, Nassim. So I'm going to give a little bit of an introduction of topic. Those who are involved in the production of agricultural commodities know that prices don't really come with a price tag. So figuring out the price of those grains or meats that are being produced actually happens at an exchange. So market participants at the exchange have information about those commodities. Some of it is in the news, some of it may be private. These market participants may have their own beliefs, expectations about how prices may change in the future, and they convey all of this while trading. So during this process, they come up with the price of the commodity. In our field, we like calling this the price discovery process. So the price is discovered by market participants at the exchange. These interactions, together with the institutions that facilitate this, such as the exchange, with its own regulations and procedures, is what we study in the field of market microstructure. So this is how, as Nassim mentioned, agricultural commodities had a really long and very strong tradition of trading in the pit. So this is a picture on how the price discovery happened in that pit. So what we see here is buyers and sellers who actually interacted through brokers, who were the only ones allowed in this pit and who physically met in the floor of the exchange and interacted face to face. So this may seem a little bit chaotic, but it was actually a pretty well-ordered, organized environment. So in this setting, only transactions prices were recorded, and they were not always publicly available. No bids, no offers, no transactions volumes were recorded. Real data stream was very limited. And because of this tradition, agricultural commodities were about the last markets that transitioned from the pit to the electronic platform. In the electronic platform, the price discovery process is very different. So here we have buyers and sellers that interact directly, not through brokers, and anonymously. So traders do not see each other. They do not know if traders that they are trading with are informed or not. And I have this picture here, which a little bit summarizes the process. I'll go over this. So we have buyers and sellers submit what we call limit orders. So it's an order to buy or an order to sell futures contracts. And each order is associated with a price and a volume, and it's timestamped. You know exactly at what time that happened. And that price is called a limit price. So it's the price at which that order is supposed to trade, or that price or a better price. And if that order matches a previously submitted order, say a buy order matches a sell order, then a transaction occurs. And if that doesn't happen, then that order remains active until it is either matched or canceled. So active limit orders is what makes up the book. This picture represents a book, so we can see different prices, different quantities, the x-axis, and we see at the top the ask side, and at the bottom we see the bid side. And we see what I name here P1 are the best prices, the best ask price and the best bid price. And because of the shape of this book, we call each level of prices a step. Step 1, step 2, step 3, and step 1 constitute the best bid and the best ask, the best prices. Step 2 would be the second best, step 3 would be the third best, and so forth. Buyers and sellers can also submit market orders, and these are associated only with a volume, how many contracts to buy or to sell, and of course the timestamp, not with a price. These orders would just trade immediately at whatever is the best price available, either that best bid or best ask. So you can imagine the real-time data stream is very rich and very detailed. We have all the bids, all the offers, all the quantities in the book, all the cancellations, edits, trades, order IDs, and everything is visible by market participants. Unlike the previous trading system I mentioned, the PIT. So, as I mentioned, this market transition late, marked by 2015 when the CME officially closed the bid for futures trading. Other markets have transitioned earlier than that. So there is research that has been done in other markets. And however, that research is not directly translatable to agricultural markets. So it's mostly research performed in stock markets. These markets are very different. Stock markets and agricultural futures markets are very different purposes and involve different types of assets. Stock markets deal with shares or ownership, stakes of publicly listed companies, whereas agricultural futures markets deal with contracts for future delivery of agricultural commodities. These contracts are agreements to buy or to sell a specified quantity of a commodity at a predetermined price. Also, the factors that affect each market are different. Stock markets are influenced mainly by factors such as company performance, economic indicators, political events, investor sentiment, whereas agricultural futures markets are influenced by factors such as weather conditions, crop yields, global demand, supply disruptions, government policies, and of course they are associated with the possibility of a physical delivery of a good, which doesn't happen with stock markets. So just out of curiosity, when we started reading the literature that has been done before for stock markets, we started studying both markets, and we do see some differences between both. Here is such very major representation of each. I have the corn market and the E-mini S&P 500, which trades at the CME. And we see that the density, it's distributed differently in the book. In corn, we see it's less quantities or less dense at the top of the book, giving that more convex shape, whereas in stock markets, it's more of a concave shape. So these markets are definitely different, and so that's how we started studying the book, the limit order book, or for short, we call it the LOB, in agricultural markets. Why study the limit order book? Let's go back here. Some reasons are to gain insights into what are the best actions to take in certain market situations, when news arrive or when events happen, to develop optimal execution strategies. It is well known that when news come into the market and large quantities need to be traded, these quantities may trade at a price, which is P1 here, and then when those quantities are gone, they start trading at P2, which is a least favorable price, and then they start what we call walking down the book. So a strategy could be to partition that large order and keep it trading at the best possible price. We can also use study the LOB to design better electronic trading algorithms. So it is that's how it is not uncommon for traders to have algorithms that trigger the submission of orders when certain events happen. And those algorithms have to be programmed. We could also assess the impact of specific events, what happens with certain news enter the market, what do we observe in the market, how does that changes the price discovery process. We could study volatility also in the market. So this opens really the window to a lot of research that we're very enthusiastically conducting.
Okay, thanks, Julieta, for the excellent introduction. I appreciate the details you provided. So I'm going to next welcome our second guest, our second speaker. So that's Dr. Mehdi Arzandeh. Mehdi received his PhD in the Department of Economics at the University of Manitoba in 2017. He's currently an assistant professor in the Faculty of Business Administration at Lakehead University. His research interests are microstructure and agricultural commodities, as well as mergers and acquisitions and trade policies. And his connection to microstructure research goes back to his PhD dissertation, and he has been involved in that type of research ever since. So take it away, Mehdi.
Thank you, Nazim, for the introduction. It's a pleasure to be here to talk about our research. So Julieta touched on price discovery process. I'm going to talk a little bit more about it. So what is price discovery, and let's see. And what is the price that we need to discover? So I'm here to say something surprising, perhaps, that we don't know the true value of an asset that we are trading. So think about a car, a used car that you buy or sell. You're just hoping that you get a good deal for it, but you really don't know what the true value is. The true value of an asset reflects all the information, current and future, about the state of a product, of a good. And we cannot possibly have all that information. So the true value is unobservable. What we observe is a set of prices, for example, the transaction price. The transaction price itself is not equal to the true value. Transaction price is discrete. True value can be any non-negative real number. And so the question is that, so if the transaction price is not equal to the true value, what is the difference, and is it economically important? In a lot of cases, it's not important, really, the difference between transaction price and the true value of an asset. But sometimes the deviation is large and economically significant. How can that happen? Think about the situation when the true value changes for any reason. One of those factors that affect this particular commodity changes, the true value changes. As long as the market participants are not aware of that change, this deviation can arise. Just very recently, the futures price of orange juice skyrocketed, and what's the reason for it? So it turns out that in Brazil, the major producer of oranges, there's some disease and bad weather that resulted in a reduction in crop. So for that reason, the price skyrocketed when market participants became aware of that situation, right? So these market participants, or informed traders or arbitrageurs, are there when the deviation between the transaction price and the true value deviates significantly. They're ready there to buy low and then sell high until that transaction price converges to the true value. So this is the process of price discovery, and these informed traders basically help with that. Now the question is that they become aware of some deviation. How are they going to incorporate that into the market? Are they going to, Julieta mentioned, are they going to use market orders for immediate execution? That again could leave a market impact, there could result in information leakage. Their action might basically signal other traders that there is some information in the market, or they use limit orders. And but limit orders, the problem with limit orders is that the execution is not as fast and is not guaranteed. So now when we look at the limit order book, we are thinking, is there a way? So we have different prices. We have the transaction price, and we have prices step 1, step 2, and then so on. When we see all this activity, is there a way to see when all these prices, when they move, which one of these are due to a change in the true price and which one of them is not? Is simply noise or just a liquidity trader, uninformed traders have been active. There is a method that in retrospect, we can look at the number of times that when the true value changed, basically which one of these prices actually led or moved first, right? Then we calculate the percentage of the times that each of these prices in the book moved first when there was a change in price, and we call that information share, that percentage. For each of these prices, we can calculate that. And we call this the contribution of each of those prices to the discovery, the price discovery process of that particular commodity. So that's information share. Now, the choice of a market order or limit order perhaps partly has to do with whether that information is short-lived or long-lived. If the information is privately possessed by an informed trader, they have time. Nobody else knows about it, at least for some time. So they can exploit this information over a longer period of time using more limit orders, as opposed to when the information is short-lived, they don't have much time, they have to go for fast execution. So when informations are short-lived, when, for example, there's a public announcement, there's a public event that basically everybody knows about it, all market participants receive the information, right? Then market participants become more aggressive, perhaps. On a typical day and an ordinary day without public events, we calculate for corn, for example, the contribution of transaction price to price discovery is less than 10%. So over 90% of the times, informed traders use limit orders, those prices in the book, basically to submit their orders and to benefit. So those prices moved first. So just looking at the transaction price as we did traditionally, we're not going to be as fast and as accurate to have insights about the true value of the asset. What about non-ordinary days? For example, when we have public events, important public events that traders learn about the markets. For example, today is one of those important days. And I'm not talking about this faculty conversation. I wish we had that kind of effect. I'm talking about today was one of those days that U.S. Department of Agriculture made an announcement. They regularly release information about the market. Those reports contain information about crops, about world at the global level, also U.S. level supply and demand. So when these public information they enter the market participants receive them and then they act on them. And literature shows that the information, the public announcements, such as the USA announcement, they have effect on the market. But those studies that look at transaction price or the price, just the best bid and ask prices. So what we do here, we want to look at the entire limit order book and see how informed traders they receive the information and then they incorporate the market. We can trace this. For example, for corn, the public announcements are done or are released at 11 a.m. Central Time during the trading session. So that helps us in real time track the information, the US information in the book. So let's bring back Julieta's slide about the book. So here's specifically it's related to corn and 10 steps of the book for corn. And we see the one that's with solid lines, the graph with solid lines is about non-USDA days when there is no, it's a typical day. And you see that the book is convex, the top of the book is more dense as it is for agriculture commodities typically. But then on announcement days, it seems that traders move away from the top of the book. The top of the book becomes less dense, and perhaps it is because some information asymmetry arises, and liquidity traders, uninformed traders, to protect themselves from potentially trading with an informed trader, they move away their position from top of the book. So that's what might be explaining why on USD days we have less dense of a top of the book. Now, I said USD announcements for corn is released during the trading session. So what we do, we look at the limit order book 20 minutes before the announcement, and then up to 40 minutes after the announcement. So we slice those days, trading days, and take 1 second snapshots of the limit order book throughout the trading horizon, and calculate the information shares for prices of the limit order book. What we do also, we group some of these prices. So we have the transaction price, one price. We want to know how much it contributes to price discovery. We have the best bid and ask. So that's another price series. And then we group step 2 and 3 together, and step 4 to 10 together. And we calculate the information shares for every second throughout the trading 1 hour trading horizon. On the left-hand side, we have a typical non-USD. So we don't have information there or public announcement there, and you see that the information shares are kind of stable throughout the trading session. The contribution of transaction price, you can see it's very small. This is, like I said, it's less than 10%. Then we have the rest of the book. Step 4 to 10, they perhaps they have a lot of information. Then after that is the best bid and ask, and then step 2 to 3. On the announcement days, when information is publicly available, we see that the contribution of transaction prices jumps. It increases to nearly 20%. And that comes at a reduction in the contribution of step 1 and 2. A few minutes after the announcement, the contribution of step 2 to 3 increases, as you can see. So we have 3,000 set of information shares here. And why this is important, because we can use these perhaps to develop an informed price, to get insights faster and more accurate about the true value. And you might be at this point asking yourself, why am I emphasizing so much on fast or understanding of the true value? Because you probably heard of the phrase time is money. In electronic platforms with nanosecond granularity, time is truly money. So the faster we know, we have insights, we have understanding of the true value, the more profitable our trading strategy is going to be. So I'm going to stop here, but I'm going to talk a little bit later about, I mentioned trading strategy. We are going to talk about developing perhaps a strategy with an informed price using these information shares to benefit from this information. So I'm going to stop here. Thank you very much. Back to you, Nazim.
Thank you, Mehdi. And let me welcome next Justin Daniels and introduce him to you. Justin received his master's degree in the Department of Agribusiness and Agricultural Economics from the U of M, University of Manitoba, in 2022. And before pursuing his master's degree, Justin spent 20 years with the Canadian Wheat Board in the Commodity Risk Management Group. In this role, he was responsible for developing commodity derivative strategy and executing derivative trades for that organization. So take it away, Justin.
Okay, thank you, Nazim, for that introduction. Okay, I'll just share one of the research topics that I've worked on recently. To start with, I want to go to a high-level view of futures prices and then zoom in to examine the microstructure details. Okay, this first chart is a long-term view of what's happened in the corn market since 1959. This provides us with a long-term perspective, allowing us to better understand the broader context before zooming into more granular details. When we zoom in, we can see a daily chart of the corn market for 5 months. This chart provides more detail, including an indication of the daily high, low, and close prices. This allows examination of the daily trends in the corn market. But when we zoom in, we can see so much more detail. Here we can see a tick chart showing each recorded trade for a week. An interesting characteristic that can be seen in this chart is the bid-ask bounce. This occurs when the traded price oscillates between the best bid and the best ask. This highlights the rapid negotiation between buyers and sellers, showcasing the immediate responsiveness of market participants to changing conditions. Understanding this bid-ask bounce provides insights into price discovery mechanisms and liquidity dynamics, which are essential for informed decision-making strategies. Another way to look at this data is to chart the quantity traded at each price. This unveils a bit more detail about what has happened at each price point, not just how long the market was at a price, but how many contracts traded at each price. Now, if you zoom all the way into a single point in time, you can see market structure at a single nanosecond. Notice there's no historical component to this data. It is just a snapshot of what the market looked like at a single point in time. You can see the limit order book that is formed from all the open limit orders that traders have entered into the market. You can see an interesting characteristic that is at the center of the book, in other words, where the best bid and best ask are, which we call step 1. It has less resting quantity than some of the steps a bit further out. This occurs because the bid-ask bounce that we saw in the tick chart, where the market was trading at the best bid and the best ask. And so these orders are getting traded and removed from the limit order book. Now, with the market by order data set, we can trace the events of each order, and we can see when that order was entered, if it was edited, when it was canceled or traded. With this information, we can determine the age of each individual order that makes up this limit order book. And this allows us to answer the question, how old are orders in the limit order book at each point in time? And also the question, do old orders contribute to the informational content of the limit order book? One approach is to build the limit order book using only orders within certain age criteria and calculate the information share of the young partial limit order book. When we look at the results of this analysis, we can see the full limit order book has about 76% of the information share when analyzed along with the last trade price. If we exclude old orders and only use orders younger than 80 minutes, we can see the informational share of the limit order book remains about the same. But as we continue to use younger orders, we can see the information share of the limit order book generally decreases, telling us that excluding these old orders actually takes away from the information share of the limit order book. Another interesting result of this analysis is to see the information share of the first step actually increasing when removing old orders, to a maximum of 44% when the orders of 20 minutes or less are used to construct this young partial limit order book. So in a very active part of the limit order book, the ages of the orders can be used to maximize the information share. Okay, back to you.
Okay, thank you, Justin. Very interesting. I was never, consider age of an order as an important factor, but obviously you found that, and that information was extracted from the new marketplace that is now available. So very cool stuff. Okay, I'm gonna move on now and welcome our next speaker, Dr. Alankrita Goswami. And Alankrita received her PhD in Agriculture and Applied Economics from the University of Georgia in the United States in 2021. And she's currently an assistant professor in the Department of Agribusiness and Agriculture Economics here at the University of Manitoba. And her research interests include supply chain disruptions in crop and livestock sectors, climate change impact on agricultural markets, agricultural futures and options markets, and microstructure and agricultural commodity markets. So over to you, Alankrita.
Thank you, Nazim, for the introduction. So I'll be talking about the order flow dynamics in the agricultural markets, at the microstructure level. And what I mean by order flow dynamics is that there are two parts to this story. So briefly, I'll go over the two parts. One part concerns what type of orders are coming in, and the other part concerns what we call liquidity in the market. So when I say type of orders coming in the market or the order activity, then I am primarily talking about these three types of orders: market orders, limit orders, cancellations, or resubmissions. Now, just imagine when these orders are coming in, be it from any category, given that, as discussed by Julieta, Mehdi, and Justin, that the traders in the market have real-time access to the micro-level details of each of these orders coming in. So if I'm a trader in the market, it is very likely that when I am placing my order in the market and viewing that information, I might be influenced by those orders coming in, because each of those orders have a price and quantity attached to them. So given that aspect, the type of orders is one of part of the story of order activity or order flow dynamics. And then the other part of the story is liquidity. What we generally mean by liquid markets is that if I'm a trader going in with a sell order, then as soon as I enter the market, there would be a buyer for that order. Or if I'm a buyer going into the market, there would be a seller. So how easily and quickly you can trade in the market, that kind of determines the liquidity in the market. So let's say over a span of time, we are seeing high trading volumes in the corn market. And given that there are high trading volumes on a day-to-day basis in the market, we can say that it's a fairly liquid market. So liquidity is very much central to well-functioning markets. And another aspect of that liquidity quotient of the markets is the role of the participants, because there should be adequate liquidity, and different participants kind of provide and take away that liquidity from the market at the same time. So agribusinesses are mostly concerned with the risk management aspect of the markets. Given that they will be primarily concerned with the risk management aspect, they would be going with that intention in the market, whereas speculators will be going with the intention of seeking profits in the market. So they kind of determine the supply and demand of liquidity in the market. So the two parts of the story, the context of the story is set. Now we see how these two parts of the story relate to each other. So we have something called the liquidity exhaustion and replenishment cycle. That is kind of like a trait of a resilient market. What does it mean? Now, this will encapsulate how these different types of orders interact with each other. So let's say traders are submitting what we call market orders. As explained earlier, market orders are something which they're submitting with the intention of immediate execution. So they'll be taking away that liquidity from the market. Now, as they pull that liquidity out of the market, there is a string of limit orders which will pour in. As limit orders come into the market, they again start providing liquidity to the market. Now, how they do that is the context is such that traders who are submitting limit orders, they are seeking a kind of price improvement. So a wait and see strategy is there, meaning that let's say I am a seller. Now, as a seller, I would like to sell as high as possible, but I want to adopt this wait and see strategy. And in that context, I'm seeking certain price improvement. So I'll go in at a certain price with my order, but just sit there for a while. The order will sit and I will be expecting that price improvement. If the price improvement comes in, then I can undercut my old order, limit order, and submit a new limit order, or straight away go for immediate execution. So depending upon what kind of intention you have, there is those dynamics of liquidity exhaustion and replenishment cycle. So given this aspect of interplay of orders, we see that there is a certain degree of complexity involved in the interaction of these orders. For example, a string of market orders here are triggering a string of limit orders. And then there can also be competition within the same order category, as we saw in case of these traders seeking price improvement with their limit orders. So given this context of the interplay of different types of orders, what also becomes important to understand is order aggressiveness. Now, order aggressiveness is something which underlies the order flow dynamics of these categories. So what I mean by order aggressiveness is that if we are talking about order activity, which is kind of concentrated in the top of the limit order book, or more, or what we call the best bid and ask. If it's concentrated in that section, then those orders, be it limit orders, market orders, etc., they'll be very, very aggressive orders. Now, as we move down the book, that is, we are moving from step one, which was closer to that top bid and ask thing. And now we are moving towards the, let's say, step 10. So we are moving across or moving down the book. As we do that, the aggressiveness quotient reduces. So the orders, they tend to become less aggressive as we move towards the step 10 of the book. So this is just one of the many ways you can define aggressiveness. But aggressiveness is, just imagine it as a kind of belief a trader is associating with each kind of order that the trader is bringing into the market. So it's very, very crucial for the interplay of these market orders, limit orders, and cancellations. Now, given all this context, the challenge lies in modeling these order flow dynamics, the endogeneity that is there, meaning that one order can trigger the other order type over a period of time. And when we talk about modeling it, there can be many flexible statistical frameworks that we can employ to understand and especially formalize the empirical properties of order flow dynamics in the ag markets. Once we are able to narrow down to the science of the markets, establish it specifically in context of ag markets, which remain under-researched, we can kind of glean out that information from those frameworks, those conceptual and econometrics frameworks, and then feed that information to better predicting models such as recurrent neural networks, so that we can also leverage the prediction aspect of order placement strategies. What this does is that we move from one end of deciphering the science of the markets to taking that information, distilling that information for the users of the markets, especially the ag community, and making that aspect more practical, more useful for that community. So that was all from my side. Over to Nazim now.
Okay, thank you very much to all of you, Julieta, Mehdi, Justin, and Alankrita, for this excellent information. And it'd be now time to open this up to further general discussion by the whole group. You know, I see from the amount of information that you're getting, you see prices, quantities of orders, frequency, age came up, right? And we have things like aggressiveness and nature of these orders that all inform trading strategies. So let's start with a general question around the implications of all of this work. What should a market participant take away from your work? So maybe I'll start with Julieta.
Yeah, so there are many aspects to it, as we saw here a little bit of research looking at the whole book instead of looking at maybe the best bid and the best ask. We saw also Justin's research looking at the age of the order. Has those orders are new? Do they contain new information, or they have been sitting there for a while? Alankrita's research looks at, well, what kind of order has been submitted? Is it an aggressive order or not? there is some other research done by one of our graduate students looking at durations. When was the last order being submitted? Was it a long time ago, or are there many orders being submitted now, which gives us an indication of information being entered in the market? So the takeaway is looking at the whole, looking at the whole, not just looking at one price, best bid or the best for the last price that important.
Right. So, I mean, I guess the transition in 2015 allows us more insights in that regard. So it's an exciting time to look at this type of data. One of the things, maybe I'll turn it over to Mehdi, regarding sort of news that enters the marketplace. You mentioned today is a good example. USDA releases market reports, and I'm sure there's other sources of such news that enter the market. Do you think the response to this type of news, particularly if it comes in the middle of the trading day, is going to be largely affecting these type of transactions? And to what extent do you think these reports then become valuable to the trader?
Thank you, Nazim. Yes, so what we developed here, the slide that I show is, so we can using the information shared for each of these prices in different places in the book, we can come up with this a trading strategy based on informed price that and when the transaction price that we observe deviates significantly from this informed price, that could be a signal for buy and sell to traders. So like Alankrita mentioned, we are bringing back we're using these this type of research in some basically practical questions in mind. So what we did, we looked at some possibilities that trade could happen using this information, developing a strategy based on what we found here relative to a conventional strategy that's out there and is used to unwind large trades. And we managed to estimate some significant economic value for the USDA report. So they're still valuable. And there are ways that in a limited period of time, within a few minutes, to exploit that information basically among market participants who are active. But of course, it requires high computational power. So what I meant was, if I can share a quick slides for takeaway, you mentioned in one of the slides that I have here, so something perhaps to remember is that during the announcement days when USDA information and other public information are released, we can see that at the announcement time, the contribution of price increases significantly, and then we have the other contribution. These information shares, we can use them as weights to develop that, to calculate a weighted average price that we call the informed price, and we compare the transaction price with this informed price. So that hopefully is going to be a kind of an insight about whether the transaction price deviates from the informed price and whether we should buy or sell. So that's kind of one of the takeaways, practical takeaways that kind of we had in mind. Thank you.
Great. So Justin, you mentioned that the age of the orders play a significant role in how you assess this information, and obviously news comes into the marketplace on an ongoing basis from different sources that might affect how people behave. I was wondering how quick is that reaction? Is that news absorbed by the market instantaneously? You mentioned nanoseconds, right? But in a realistic way, how quickly is that news integrated into people's thinking? Maybe I'll start with you. Go ahead, Justin.
Well, we know that the market is generally very efficient. And what that means is that the market is able to absorb and digest information very quickly. So there's not a lot of room in there to say that the market hasn't already adjusted to the current news. But just practically speaking, it does take time for traders to enter their positions. Some positions are large and traders take, time on purpose to not influence the market while entering their positions. And other traders are just a little bit slower. Not everyone has, high performance computing capable of, immediately putting their information into the market. And we also like to talk about private information versus public information. Now, a lot of traders out there do have private information that is held within their company or within their small trading group.
Right.
And that information probably takes a while to get into the market. We have looked and we've found that even in the order book, after the orders have been entered, the order book contains information on even old orders. So it's not absolutely instantaneous, but it is, very efficient.
Great, thanks for that. Before I move on to a question to Alankrita, I wanted to invite our audience to make sure they type in their questions if there is any. I know I have many myself, but certainly want to give the audience a chance to ask. Alankrita, you mentioned that your work focuses on order flow in agricultural markets. So, to what extent does that affect, markets here in the prairies? What practical knowledge could we take away from your work in that regard?
Thanks for the question, Nazim. So in context of the practicality of what we are doing or the utility of our work for the ag community in the prairies, there are certain aspects that we are aware of. And it's very well known that a lot of activity in the market is determined, just like I explained, by the role of different participants, different players in the market. So, for example, the hedge index funds, they enter the market to gain passive exposure to the commodities markets. So they are diversifying their risk from the financial markets into the commodities markets. And given that they are doing that, they are mostly trading with high-speed algorithms. So they're doing speed trading. Now, we have our ag business communities as well, trading in the same markets. So this will extend beyond the prairies because a large community in North America, ag business community, would be doing that. And when they are doing that, I wouldn't say that they won't have access to the expertise needed to the market. They do have that access to the expertise. There are a lot of ag startups coming up which are looking at that landscape in terms of designing speed trading algorithms, which are also complementing the risk management profiles of these ag business communities. But the challenging aspect is, like I said, the ag markets are still kind of a black box when it comes to the microstructure details of the markets. How is it happening? What is the science behind it? So we are kind of like, whatever work we'll be doing, it needs to bridge that gap. So whatever insights we generate from our empirical work, which will establish the science, but then take it step ahead, play around with those deep learning models and try to create those insights for not just for the ag business community who are trading in the markets, but also for these ag startups which are coming up, who can leverage that information. And given all those aspects, it's like bridging the gap for them so that they are somewhat at par with those speed trading algorithms and are able to digest information in the same context. So, for example, just like Mehdi was talking about, no news days versus news days. So those are when US Department of Agriculture is coming up with new reports. There's a span on a trading day when those time span when those reports come in. Now, given, just like I said, traders have beliefs. So those beliefs are guiding traders' order placement strategies. So same way, the order activity can differ on those 2 days. And if the ag business community people are trading in the market on those 2 days, then we should have information in the form of, or insights in the form of technical bulletins for them, which will give them the understanding of how dynamics are of how the dynamics are on news versus no news days, so that they can keep that thing in mind. They can be mindful of that while trading in the market. So more or less along those lines.
Yeah, no, that's great insights. I think, with all this voluminous data coming your way, I'm sure there's room, you mentioned this already, for artificial intelligence and machine learning opportunities. If anybody wants to speak to that, how is that affecting these type of markets? Maybe I'll start with Mehdi and then give Julieta a chance as well. Do you see that affecting your type of work?
Thank you, Nazim. Absolutely. So Justin mentioned that quickly, that not everybody has access to that kind of computational power, that kind of high frequency ability to trade that fast. So that's one of our concerns for sure. Also, Alankrita mentioned that. So the information that we get, this massive amount of data, we can process it and we can feed it into these models quickly. Not every market participant can do that. So one of the observation that we made is between corn, for which the USDA announcements are happening during the trading session and significantly affect the market for say 30 minutes or even more, compared to another commodity, for example, live cattle, for which the USDA announcements are outside trading hours. When it's outside trading hours, the next day market opens, pretty much the information is out there, everybody knows it. So you don't see a lot of significant activity, not a lot of basically room to exploit that USDA information. So one of these considerations that AI actually could affect, and those who have access to it can benefit from it. And another question, is it equitable? So one of the practical applications, and maybe we should just release information outside trading hours, so those with power cannot exploit it as fast. Julieta maybe can add to that. Thank you.
Yeah, and AI, I believe it's already being used. I briefly mentioned trading algorithms, which are used by traders to take advantage of those arbitrage opportunities that Mehdi talked about when news come into the market and they're just absorbed in a very short time span. And there is lots of data to be processed in a very short time span. So that's already being done. And I think there is so much more to do in just like we are sort of studying different parts of the animal and trying to figure out which animal it is. So there is definitely lots of different aspects that can be incorporated in these trading strategies that could be done using AI.
Yeah, that's great. And Julieta, you said, or all of you said as a group, that this transition to the electronic platform only happened in 2015. So that's 8-9 years into it. But that agricultural markets were the latest to do that. What can you learn from other markets that have made that transition? Does anybody want to take a stab at that? I know that other markets have gone electronic for some time, right? Before that, maybe you can speak to that, Julieta. Maybe I'll give you another chance to speak to that.
Yeah, so we have definitely learned a lot because we didn't really have any research done in agricultural markets to build on. So we started looking at other markets and realizing how other markets are different. So we take what we think it may work in agricultural commodities, but definitely we cannot just make a direct comparison. So we're trying to be very careful in trying to make conclusions out of those studies. We try also, when we do our own research, we do the research for both. We have data actually for agricultural commodities and the one I showed, the E-mini, and we compare, and then we realize, okay, yeah, this is similar to what has been found before in the non-agricultural markets, so we are in the right track, but our markets are really different, and we can not make that direct comparison.
Right, so there's still lots to come, it looks like. I mean, you're just starting this journey, and I feel like you're scratching the surface, so I'm sure there'll be interesting results coming from your work. I could chat some more, but I think we're going to run out of time here. I think that the clock says 4:30. So this, unfortunately, brings us to the end of our conversation. Let me start by thanking our speakers and presenters. One more time, Julieta, Mehdi, Justin, and Alankrita, thanks for joining us today. I certainly enjoyed it. It was a great discussion, and your time is very much appreciated. And this actually brings us to the end of the Faculty Conversation series for this year. but we are already planning more virtual conversations and in-person seminars starting in the fall of 2024. So make sure you keep an eye out for some social media posts around these or by visiting makemanitoba.ca. And with that, thank you, everyone, and have a great summer.